Chapter 15. Nature of Dominance Hierarchy. All animals inevitably organize themselves into hierarchies, and humans are no exception. With simple animals such as lobsters, the hierarchy is determined by nothing more than brute strength. The most dominant lobster is whichever is best at winning wrestling matches. Chimpanzees are more complex than lobsters. A chimp hierarchy is determined to some degree by brute strength, but also by popularity and political maneuvering. Humans are the most complex animal on the planet, and our hierarchies are determined very little by physical strength. Yes, being tall and muscular does win a man's status, but rank within human hierarchies is far more determined by things such as intelligence, competency, likability, and worldly wealth, money and power. The most powerful men on the planet as of this writing are Jeff Bezos and Vladimir Putin, both of whom are conspicuously small. The aim of this essay is to describe traits that are ubiquitous to all human hierarchies, whether they be American society, Russian society, a corporation, or simply the pecking order of a gang in West Baltimore. Macro and micro. It is important to distinguish between a macro-dominance hierarchy and a micro-dominance hierarchy. A macro-hierarchy is a large group a person can be a part of, designated by a geographical area. Everyone within the entirety of a city or the entirety of a country. The word society is a euphemism for macro-dominance hierarchy. A micro-hierarchy is a smaller group a person may be a member of, such as a family or a particular corporation. The country America is a macro-hierarchy of more than 300 million people. Meanwhile, the employees of a corporation form a micro-hierarchy with only a few dozen or 100 people. What wins status? What wins a person's status varies from one hierarchy to another. In virtually all macro-hierarchies, having a high level of wealth relative to others grants a person high status. In virtually all micro-hierarchies, having a high level of competence with a task affecting the group wins a person high status. In some hierarchies, engaging in violence wins one's status, particularly if it's violence against members of the outgroup, members of an enemy tribe. On the other hand, there are hierarchies where engaging in violence instantly causes one to become low status. If you are a member of a gang in West Baltimore, then engaging in a fistfight and winning may cause your status to rise. However, if you are an associate at a law firm and you decide to engage someone in a fistfight, your status will instantly drop to zero. You will be summarily fired. Power is greater than merit. Tragically, most hierarchies are based on nothing more than arbitrary power. Meritocracies are rare. Hierarchies, where status is based primarily on competence, are the exception, not the rule. Competence is always a factor in determining one's status, but almost never is it the only factor. In most hierarchies, status is determined by some mixture of competence, likability, and arbitrary power. A person's level of status and power are not precisely the same thing, but in most cases they are so closely correlated as to be all but indistinguishable. Status is venue-dependent in the sense that a person can have high status in one venue or group and low status in another. Status throughout history. In hunter-gatherer societies, status competition between men usually takes the form of fistfights and physical violence. Often, status is determined based on who is best at waging war against rival tribes. Sometimes it's determined by who is best at hunting wild animals and providing food for the tribe. In capitalist societies, status competition between men usually takes the form of who has the highest income, the biggest net worth, or the most impressive job title. Pareto distribution. In virtually every dominance hierarchy, whether macro or micro, worldly wealth is Pareto distributed. This is a statistician's way of saying that a minority of people get almost everything, and most people get little or nothing. People who are rich, powerful, and high status are the minority, while people who are poor, powerless, and low status are the majority. Throughout human history, most societies have had three classes: the bottom 90% who are poor, the top 10% who are upper class, and the top 0.1% who are rich. The existence of a middle class has been a historical exception. The overwhelming majority of people being poor has been the historical rule. Universities teach you that everything of consequence is normally distributed, a bell curve distribution. Sadly, this is inaccurate. In almost every human society, it is the case that wealth and power are Pareto distributed. Every society is an oligarchy, in the sense that in every society, a minority of people wield virtually all the political power. A minority of people are on the winning side of the Pareto distribution. It is the will of the few, not the will of the many, that rules. Lives of quiet desperation. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Henry David Thoreau. Tragically, it is the case that in most societies the bottom 90% of men are nothing more than cheap labor for the top 10% of men. Quality of life is Pareto distributed. Most people are miserable. A minority are happy. Quality of life correlates very closely with worldly wealth. In every society that has ever existed, life for people at the top of the hierarchy has been astronomically better than life for people at the bottom. Exponentially increasing inequality. Because wealth is Pareto distributed, a person one level above you will have exponentially more wealth than you, and as you move up the hierarchy, the wealth gaps between one level and the next immediately above gets bigger rather than smaller. Essentially, the wealth inequality between a person at the 99th percentile and the 90th percentile is far bigger than the inequality between a person at the 90th percentile and the 80th percentile. As such, increasing one's hierarchical status doesn't have diminishing marginal returns. It has exponentially increasing marginal returns. Feedback loops. Why wealth is Pareto distributed? The main reason wealth is Pareto distributed is feedback loops. A positive feedback loop is a phenomenon in which one good thing happening dramatically increases the probability that an additional good thing will happen. One good thing leads to another, and another, and another. The reason extremely rich people exist is due to a runaway positive feedback loop that took them up in the stratosphere. A negative feedback loop is a phenomenon in which one bad thing happening dramatically increases the probability that an additional bad thing will happen. The reason most poor people never manage to escape poverty is because they are constantly being wrecked by negative feedback loops. Positive feedback loops cause the rich to become richer, while negative feedback loops cause the poor to become poorer, or at least stay trapped in poverty. This inevitably leads to wealth being Pareto distributed. Pyramid structure. An extension of the Pareto distribution is this. Society has a pyramid-shaped hierarchy. Each level has fewer people than the one below it, and more people than the one above it. It has been said that every person on the planet is no more than 6 handshakes away from one another. In life, you have 2 choices. Be an ignorant fool or a brilliant strategist. Buy the audiobook now to learn how to be the latter. Scroll down to find the link in the description. Click on the link. Purchase it now. Listen to the entire audiobook from start to finish. Then, watch your life transform.